Welcome to Cinemaholics. Okay, sure. You just heard from us. We just talked about Space Jam earlier this week, Space Jam: A New Legacy. But we're back for a bonus review. We want to talk about another movie that's out that we managed to catch called Pig. I'm John Negroni, your host as usual, and with me I have Will Ashton.
Hello.
Will Ashton, Pig? A movie called Pig? What is going on? What is this movie?
Well, contrary to what you might think, it is not a dark, gritty remake to Babe: Pig in the City, though I guess it kinda is, depending on how you look at it.
Sure.
It's like a remake of half of Babe: Pig in the City, if you are really invested in like a gritty version of the James Cromwell side of the story. That's a good movie, Babe: Pig in the City. Have you seen it?
Not since the late 90s.
It's a good film. I think it's better than the original. If we're talking Pig.
I'm trying
films.
really hard to remember anything that happened in that movie, and I am failing completely.
Really?
But
I have a better memory of Pig in the City than the original Babe.
I thought you were going to say, because I was about to mention you have a better memory of that movie than Black Widow, but because I was going to mention that lately pigs have been having a moment in cinema. I'm not sure what that's about. Well, I mean, even just the last few weeks between this, Black Widow, there's something else.
Well, I mean, before that there was Into the Spider-Verse with Spider-Pig.
That's true.
Which
Another
also
Nicolas
starred,
Cage.
Yes,
yeah.
Nicolas Cage. But that was a couple years ago. I'm not quite sure what recent film other than Black Widow and this one you're referring to with a pig, but I would like to know so I can see it.
It's something, but sure. I think the main point is that we watched a movie about a pig, and some of you might be, if you're listening, bless you, because I'm sure a lot of you have no idea like what this movie is. I didn't know really what this movie was going into it. Didn't watch a trailer. You didn't watch a trailer.
But I knew about it. I was familiar. It was on my radar because, as I've discussed on the show plenty of times now, I'm a big fan of Nicolas Cage. Not ironically, or at least mostly not ironically. I generally think he is a very fascinating, idiosyncratic actor, and he has a very unique screen presence that makes him very compelling to watch, even when his movies are unfortunately not always very good.
Yeah, I mean, look, if in an alternate universe, Will, I think you and I would probably do a podcast where we literally watch all of the Nicolas Cage movies, like one a week.
There is a podcast like that. Your friend Clint Worthington does that with Nathan Raven.
Oh, the face-off thing?
Yeah.
I forgot about that. But yeah, in an alternate universe, we're the ones doing that. And I don't envy them, because we learned from Abed, of course, in Community that is a road to destruction. But I enjoy a Nicolas Cage film, you know, every once in a while.
I've seen most of Nicolas Cage's films, though, so I'm almost at Abed's level.
Well, that was the thing. It wasn't watching every single one. It was like watching every single one in a short period of time.
Yes,
right?
Which I did in high school sometimes.
And you just wanted to challenge yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I would do marathons with my friend who I saw the movie with, Pig. I mean, we would watch like 3 or 4 Nicolas Cage movies in a row, and they are always fascinating because, like I said, Nicolas Cage always brings his own unique energy to each film, but what energy he brings each film is always different, but very singular at the same time to the one and only Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, if there's an actor who does the opposite of phoning it in, I think Nicolas Cage defines that archetype, you know? It does not matter.
Because it's weird because he has a reputation, or at least he did have a reputation pre like Mandy of being like, oh, he's just going to phone it in. And sure, he had like a run of films like in, I want to say like 2014 to like 2016 where he wasn't, you know, he needed to make money, and he was not making films that were up to his pay grade, and they were kind of being thrown onto Redbox and stuff. And, you know, I'm not going to say those performances were his peaks or his best stuff, but the idea that he has a reputation that's similar to someone like Bruce Willis was always absurd to me.
Sure. Look, I'll just say, because, you know, you mentioned it. You talked about Mom and Dad, I remember, before Mandy came out, so I don't know if you want to include that in the equation. And I think that before 2014 there were other films like Drive Angry, you know, that I don't necessarily think were all that strong. There was also
he's had bad films throughout his career.
Oh yeah. I mean, we don't have to go far. Season of the Witch, you know, what was that one where he was like some kind of like sorcerer or something, Sorcerer's
Apprentice? Yeah, that was not his finest hour, but I don't hate that film.
Me neither.
But not,
Me neither.
I don't know. I thought it was whatever. But Yeah, it did not do well. It was a huge flop, and it prevented National Treasure 3 from happening. True story.
Which I guess so. Sometimes good things happen for the wrong reasons. Anyway, another movie I do want to bring up, Color Out of Space.
Yes, good film.
That was a movie. That's one I still haven't seen, but I did. The other Nicolas Cage film I did see this year was Prisoners of Ghostland,
which I liked.
And I did not care for that film. Did not like it.
Well, we all have our faults.
Well, I was just about to ask what you thought of it, but okay, I guess I
enjoyed it.
Question.
I didn't love it. It's on the low. It's like mid-tier Cage for me. It's like Gentleman 6 out of 10. I'd say it's not my favorite. It's not what I think about a lot, but I really love the like look and design of the film. I think I appreciate it more than I love it, but Nicolas Cage's performance is I find to be highly entertaining.
Well, I think this movie is going to go down probably as one of my favorite Nicolas Cage movies. So what is it all about? It takes place in Portland, Oregon, or kind of outside of Portland, Oregon.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at first.
I'm looking for a truffle pig. Someone stole her.
I don't understand. Tell me who you are.
You made the right choice, being out there in the woods. There's nothing here for you anymore. There's really nothing here for most of us. Buy yourself a new pig.
What are you thinking?
I remember every meal I ever cooked. I remember every person I ever served. You live your life for them, and they don't even see you. You don't even see yourself. We don't get a lot of things to really care about. Who has my pig?
It's being billed as a thriller drama, and I think that's false. It's a drama. Like, this is a straight up drama, but it's a subversive one because it teases other subgenres throughout.
I'd say it's like a psychological thriller, sorta.
Nah. No. I just don't. I think that it has thriller elements that are, like I said, teased. Just teased, though. But I think when it comes to the actual emotion and real presentation, like the stealth heart of this movie, it exists to be a like drama. It reminds me a lot of Riders of Justice. It really is going for a similar vibe, even though Riders of Justice kind of goes fuller into those genres, those subgenres. And I think that it similarly is saying something super new and original about men that I absolutely love. So this film was co-written and directed by Michael Sarnoski. This is his first film. Killer debut from the guy. Another movie I was thinking of, by the way, with this was obviously, I think a lot of people were probably thinking of First Cow, Kelly Reichardt film, and rightfully so. But to the point where like this movie started and I didn't know what year it was, right? Like I thought, maybe this is like Pioneer Days.
Yeah, because he's like dressed down. He has kind of like baggy, outdated clothes. He's shaggy beard, long haired, kind of has a scruff to him that looks like he hasn't bathed in well over a month or two. I can definitely, everything about this film is very deliberate and intentional as far as how it reveals information. That's especially one thing I love about the film. Yeah.
Exactly, because it knows that that this is Nicolas Cage. It knows that there are a lot of people watching this who are familiar with Mandy, right? They're familiar with these movies that are like revenge thrillers. And so as they're watching the movie, they're going to kind of get a sense of like, okay, yeah, we're going to get full-blown Cage, right? But maybe that's not what we're going to get, because I also, by the way, another movie, Truffle Hunters, I was like, oh man, they already made, because I know that they were making this film before Truffle Hunters like came out, like before it premiered at Sundance. So it's not like a 1-to-1, but it was just a funny coincidence.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because so Truffle Hunters, for those of you who don't know, it's a documentary that premiered Sundance 2020 that a lot of people liked. It's about like kind of what Nicolas Cage is doing in this movie, where he's using a pig to help him find truffles in this sort of like rural area.
Good movie.
The plot is that, oh, and by the way, this is Neon, which
Yes.
Neon just absolutely killing it lately.
Yeah.
Like, I think based on their output the last year or two, like they've easily, for me, overshadowed A24, because I know people kind of compare the two studios, like they're not the same, but you know, in terms of what they kind of movies they go for, but just in terms of like that, like pseudo independent art house film studio that's really backed by rich people, I think Neon lately for me has been really the most impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it did. I mean, that's a thought that crossed my mind, is that it did kind of remind me of A24 circa 2013 or 2014, in the sense that like their studio was something to prove, as opposed to A24, which is, you know, an established brand. I still like A24, but you know, when you say A24, you have a movie in mind. Like you have certain expectations. Yeah. And Neon, you know, it's like still there's room to wiggle and play, and it's like there's no set movie I can think of as being like, this is a definitive Neon title. There are Neon titles I could list, but not one where I can be like, this is a quote-unquote Neon title.
Yeah, because you have some, like, you literally have like Neon Demon, you have something like Possessor.
But that wasn't,
but then,
Neon Demon wasn't Neon.
Is it not? Maybe I put that together incorrectly. But okay, fine.
Yeah,
Possessor.
I don't think so.
Maybe I'm thinking of Ingrid Goes West or something.
Yes, that was Neon.
But yeah, let's say that. So like Possessor, which of course is like very, very gory, hard R film. Mm-hmm. But then you also have Parasite. You have Colossal. You have, you know, this like really fun indie film that, you know, has this big sci-fi concept. You have Parasite, heralded as one of the best films of the decade. And then you also have something like this. It's just like such a range that I'm obsessed with. It's like you're saying, like A24 has such a specific, like small town, low stakes, great performances, kind of grainy, you know, film screen, very like striking like independent original stories. Neon is like, let's try to make a movie like you've never seen it before, but you feel like you've always wanted without knowing it. That's kind of how I bucket the two studios right now.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of get the sense that both studios are trying to push films that would otherwise be pocketed to limited art house theaters into the mainstream, which is why I appreciate both of them. They're giving...
Me too.
You know, like, it's just like, it's very comforting and odd to me that this was given a wide release and that I saw it with a almost half full audience. Like, this feels like something I would have to, like, drive an hour out of my way to see at, like, a small, like, hidden art house theater somewhere. Like, the fact that I could see this locally at a major multiplex is very intriguing and beguiling to me, I have to say.
Yeah, it's playing at our local Regal right now, you know, and it's getting a push, and that's because of Neon, and we obviously are happy that Neon and A24 exist, and I'll take that as a moment to pump up Green Knight, which is coming out in a few weeks, and I'm so excited about that A24 film. It's a long time coming. But back to the film Pig. The plot of this movie really kicks off when we find out that Nicolas Cage's character, Robin, he sells these truffles to a very young businessman kind of in the restaurant industry played by Alex Wolff, but something goes wrong when in the middle of the night his pig is violently stolen and the two of them have to go on this journey. Say again?
I said robbed, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really work because he was robbed.
Right.
It would be funnier if he had robbed somebody, but he didn't.
No, but I think it's intentional, though. He was, I don't know, whatever. Keep going.
I mean, people be robbing? Is that... Anyway, so sure. I just thought it was a cool name, personally. I thought it was very folksy. Great folk soundtrack, by the way. And the two of them go on a journey to get the pig back. And kind of as I was mentioning before, you think it's one movie at first. You think it's like, okay, like... Nicolas Cage, he looks scary in this movie. He's got blood on his face, big disgrace, gonna kick their cans all over the place. But that doesn't happen. This movie becomes something else. It becomes something, in my opinion, that is truly wonderful, emotional, heartwarming, and healing. And my one sentence thing about this, and we recently talked about how revenge is so overhyped in movies. We were talking about Gunpowder Milkshake, how one hang up I had with that movie was its obsession with making revenge seem cool, and like, that's fine. Like, I don't mind enjoying that kind of movie once in a while, but these are the movies that I really want to celebrate and spotlight, which is a movie that says men don't need revenge, and you can apply that, of course, to the other gender, but specificity is nice here for me because it's something that I think men deal with a lot. It's like this expectation that we have to solve our problems with violence and getting the better of somebody else, when this movie is about something deeper and more related to truth, something wittier and more clever and altogether wonderful. So yeah, man, I dig this movie so much. Was just looking at my best movies of 2021. This definitely makes the top 10 for me. And I know you're a fan, Will, because I can always tell when you like a movie and the way you talk about it after you see it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I knew from the way that this movie was described, and also the fact that it was being lauded for Nicolas Cage's performance, I was like, surely I'm going to like this film. That's why I made a point to seek it out on opening day and see it before any quote-unquote potential spoilers would be unleashed, because I knew that all the reviews were like, go into this as blindly as possible, to try not to have any preconceptions of what this movie is going to be. And sure enough, like we said, I didn't see a trailer, just saw the poster and knew it was about a pig and Nicolas Cage trying to get that pig back. And as we discussed in our Black Widow review, I'm quite fond of pigs, cinematic pigs at least. I don't have a lot of experience with real pigs, but
I was about to say, like, there's something else there.
I mean, I quite enjoy a good cinematic portrayal of a pig. We haven't mentioned Spider Pig from the Simpson movie. That's another one that's quite fun. I'm trying to.
Yeah,
you don't like the Simpson movie, whatever.
No.
We don't need to
My
discuss
thing
that.
with Spider Pig was like how people thought that was the funniest joke, and it was so overdone. And I was like, that song, and I was like, come on, like that's not comedy. He just sings a song about a pig. Like, what is funny about that?
Yeah, that scene was a little overdone as far as the marketing was concerned, but
they literally did a commercial where like fans were singing the song like outside the theater, and I'm just like, what are we doing here? This was like 15-year-old John, by the way.
Sure. But in any case, we're not here to review the Simpson movie, 2007's The Simpsons movie. We're here to discuss
so I was 16
Pig.
then. Okay. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, it depends on when it came out, I guess, in 2007.
Yeah, I might have been 17.
Yeah. But in any case, with this film, I mean, like, even knowing that wasn't going to be the quote-unquote John Wick-esque revenge vigilante movie that you might be led to believe from the synopsis, I knew that I wasn't really prepared for what I was going to get here. And sure enough, I mean, I knew it was going to be poetic and somber and have a nice kind of melancholy quality to it, but I really wasn't expecting it to be something that was so patiently rewarding like this. I thought it was going to be more like You Were Never Really Here, which I guess is an ample comparison, but the quality of this film, as you mentioned, does have the sort of like lingering patience of something like a Kelly Reichardt film.
Yeah, it's not as abstract though as like You Were Never Really Here, but yeah, it's way more grounded, like something like First Cow, but with the You Were Never Really Here sort of subject matter.
Yeah, because like similar to First Cow, there is like this kind of foreboding sense of doom and like this like threat to the livelihood and well-being of its characters, but at the same time there is a sort of like lyrical poetic quality to it where there is something very gentle and almost kind of assuring about it, even when there is the threat to violence lingering throughout. There is this desire to really like kind of understand its characters in a way that's not like hand-wringing or overly done. It requires a lot of patience and assurance from the audience to kind of take certain cues and understand things that even if the movie isn't, spoon feeding you, it does tell you everything that you kind of need to know on a scene by scene basis. And if you keep up with it, I think it's a very rewarding and lingering film, as I mentioned before, because it does offer a lot to say about the human condition. Not that everything it's saying is completely unique or original, and if you want to poke holes about the inner logic of the world, I guess you can, but I think the best way to appreciate this film is just on its own merits, just like accepting the world that it presents and the way that it's being presented, which is like sort of acute to our world, but like also there is like this sort of like lyrical, like I said, dream quality to it that kind of defies easy explanation, but feels very thought through and very distinct, and it has its own sort of set of rules that don't feel out of place or out of step. Like, it doesn't feel like, even when the movie doesn't take the directions you expect it to take, it doesn't feel like anything is inauthentic or inaccurate to what is being portrayed. And I think that's a quality of the film that I find really, really impressive, especially for a first-time filmmaker.
The only studio notes on this movie probably were like, yes, go with that. You know, like,
that's why
I'm
I
sure
find
there were notes, but
fascinating is that, like, I'm very curious to know if they sold the movie like this, or if they sold it like, hey, we got Nicolas Cage. It's going to be like Mandy meets John Wick with a pig. And they were like, yeah, sure.
Sight unseen. Make whatever you want.
Yeah. And, like, here's whatever, $2 million, whatever the budget of this movie is. And they're like, he was like, all right. And then he just comes with, like, this, like, like, very restrained, meditative movie. And I don't know if they were just like, I mean, it still works, but I don't know. I'm very curious to know if this is the movie that was sold or if they kind of got away with something. But
right. I mean, box office wise, I think it's making enough money to hopefully kind of bring back its budget. It's almost at $1 million for box office. So if it's probably a micro budget, to your point.
Yeah.
I think that as an awards film, this will probably be a big, boost for Neon. Another Neon film I wanted to bring up, but I wanted to wait, and you already kind of set it up perfectly. When I think about like the Neon films that describe that patience you're talking about, that this film has to sort of like lead you along a familiar path, but then take you to a totally different destination. I think of Portrait of a Lady on Fire. That is a film that knows the type of audience member who's watching it. This sort of pretentious, snobby film critic who really just is like, okay, you're going to show me a lesbian period drama, been there, done that. But then Portrait sweeps you away with so much of it's like, it's devastating for what it does and what it changes about its own sort of tropes and cliches before SNL ever, parodied that whole thing. And another movie that I was really thinking, and I don't know, I'm going to catch some heat for this, I think, from you. I think you're going to probably throw the frying pan at me, but I was thinking a lot about Ratatouille, Will. I was thinking a lot about Ratatouille.
Yeah, especially towards the end, and I guess in the middle too.
A little in the middle, but definitely. And I wasn't thinking about this until I was reading your review of the Anthony Bourdain documentary, Roadrunner.
Okay.
So you wrote that review for the young folks.
Yes.
And in it, you kind of mentioned like how, and it's something I forget about sometimes, that Anthony Bourdain kind of got his start from sort of doing his tell-all book, right? Of like the dark side, the underbelly of the restaurant industry. And this movie, it picks the Portland restaurant scene as like kind of sketchy, kind of dark. And it's such a cool way in for a movie that like, who else is making movies like this? Like picking something so specific, but something that's so immediately fascinating to a lot of people, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, we all got to eat.
I know you haven't been to Portland, but I have, and it's
No.
it's kind of cool. It's that it, just in the whole setting of it all, the way this movie like brings that location to life in a way that other movies don't as well. One movie that Timmy Failure does a good job at it. I'll give it that.
Oh yeah, gotta love it. Yeah, actually, I am kind of bummed that I didn't get a chance to see this with my one friend who actually just came back here from spending a stint in Portland. I would have been very curious to kind of rack his brain about like the accuracies and lack thereof of the film as far as what it's like to live in Portland, though he was quarantined for a decent bit of it, so I don't know if, how much he could really offer. But in any case, I mean, I think that's really kind of the key to the film, the recipe, I guess, the secret sauce of it, is that it does have this sort of perception of this industry that, we've seen a lot of portrayals of the working class like restaurant business, as well as like the upper scale restaurant business in a way that, has sort of like a mythic quality to it, but not in this particular way where it does feel very exacting and very lived in a very peculiar sort of way. Like I said, like everything in the movie doesn't feel like exactly true to life, but doesn't feel like in another realm or another world. Like it feels like everything has enough ties to reality that we can kind of lend some credence to or some sense of reality to it, but also at the same time.
But it's still immersive.
Yeah, it's still immersive, but it's also like distance enough that we can kind of look at it in allegorical fashion and really get a lot to poke at, a lot of like, a lot of meat to chew, to borrow a few food puns.
On that note, would you say, Will, that this is a movie where Nicolas Cage's character tries to bring home the bacon?
Sure. Well, that's the other thing too. Is I mean, at least as a fan of Nicolas Cage, that's the aspect of the film, especially because he produced the film, that I find really intriguing and worthwhile. Is that there is the seemingly intended meta narrative of the film, which is that at this point in his career, and I'm sure this is a story that's going to continue with that other Nicolas Cage movie that's supposed to come out next year. I believe it's titled at the moment like the what is it, like the massive weight or massive talent or something, like the overabundance of massive talent or something. It's something like that. I can't remember the exact title, but that's like another film that's like examining Nicolas Cage's career from a like cinematic lens that he has, like as we were mentioning, this sort of like mythic quality to him that's inherently iconic quality where he is like revered, but he also is sort of looked down upon in some respects as like sort of like over the hill or not quite the legacy actor that he once was. But like you see movies like this and Mandy and Color Out of Space, and clearly he still has the goods. Like he can deliver if you give him the right character, and if you see the film, you see like this kind of one-on-one with him and his real life, and I think his screen presence is really what makes this work, as well as Alex Wolff's performance, which I also think is terrific. We haven't really mentioned that yet, but like just the way that he, in like a stern look, can like communicate so much and sell you into this world that on its face could seem totally ridiculous and totally out of place, but kind of similar to the Keanu Reeves quality in John Wick in a similar way. Like he just makes you sell it in a way that doesn't feel like he's trying too hard. Like it just like naturally he feels embedded to this character, this type of character, and sells you into this kind of weird intangible film and concept in a way that surprises you and really makes you like examine his career and his filmography in new and sort of profound ways.
I think for me what's remarkable about the performance is that he really has to bring in three very different types of characters and make them all feel a whole of one another. The film is split up into different chapters, and a lot of the first chapter is him. We get to introduce to him, and he's a hermit, but he's like a sensitive hermit. The love he has for his pig comes through, and these are very crucial scenes because you have to understand his motivation for wanting this pig back so well through just a really short handful of scenes. Like we're not with him and the pig for a long time, but the pig still hangs over the movie, and that is a testament, I think, to his performance in those scenes.
And the pig's performance.
And the pig, well trained.
Apparently not. I heard that the pig was kind of bitey on set, surprisingly, but that's neither here nor there.
Sometimes when it comes to pigs, you want bad boys, bad girls. But yeah, then the second part of the movie, we follow him as like this pseudo aggressor kind of character, and of like he's like single-minded, and he kind of goes on this emotional journey, and then we get this totally different version of the character in the last third. And I think what makes it all come together is, you kind of mentioned Alex Wolff's performance. This is a killer supporting performance because I think it's key to the movie. Like Nicolas Cage is doing his best, but if he doesn't have Alex Wolff to bounce off of there, and for those characters to have a believable friction that ultimately kind of becomes maybe something else, then I don't think this movie is nearly as successful. And so you really got to give it up to both these guys. I mean, it is just tremendously directed in that way, because I think it's so easy for Alex Wolff to play just a total D-bag in this movie and he does. But you still like
extent.
find, but you know what I mean? Like you still find something there to get a hold of. Like it's not one dimensional, and it's really well done, but it still has the trappings of like that one dimensional hotshot character, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean he's like the yin to Cage's yang, and that like unlike Cage's character, who is like well proven and like we said, mythic and like over the hill and doesn't really want to prove anything or feel the need to prove anything, his character is like this sort of like sadly mediocre type of guy who's like constantly trying to like improve himself, make himself live up to the shadow of his peers, including his father, and like at the same time he has like this self-awareness. Like he's not a dumb guy, like he knows his like own mediocrity is a hindrance, but he's like trying to like overcome his shortcomings and he just can't. Like he tries to like listen to classical music and like drive this really fancy car and like slick his hair back and hang out with the big boys, and it just like there's something about his performance that's like kind of darkly funny, but it's also inherently sad without being too much of one or the other. And the way that kind of opposite character but also akin character is able to bounce off of the sullen grace of Cage's character and screen presence is just really kind of remarkable to watch.
I'll admit, one of the things I didn't love about this movie is when it kind of goes a little Fight Club, but they even handle that pretty well. Like I was kind of groaning, but then it comes around.
Yeah. I think that scene though is so crucial to the film, because it's like
it is.
You that's like what people are expecting the film to be. Like they're expecting it to be like, this is that John Wick direction you want, but then they present the violence and it's like so stark and brutal and like hard to watch, and it's like almost kind of like egging you on. Another food pun to be like, is this the movie you really want? Like you want like to see Nicolas Cage like getting punched and beaten and all this stuff for the sake of a pig?
What do you
just
get
like,
from that?
Right. Like yeah, exactly. It's like the you were never really here thing again. It's just like we can show you the result of the violence, but it's just like, what good does this do? Like our character's still effed up, at the end of this, and he doesn't have what exactly he wants, and it's just like I said, everything about this movie feels like it can seem very incidental, but it feels so exact and so thought through that it's really quite remarkable for a first-time writer and director.
Especially, I mean, that monologue scene with the chef at the restaurant.
Scene of the year.
I sat there just like my jaw on the floor. I was like, this writing, it's so simple, and like every element of it is just it's the closest thing to like perfect I think it could be. I mean, just the cutting back and forth, the look on the chef's face when we finally see Amir's face when he realizes what is actually happening here. I mean, it's just like it's killer stuff. And yeah, oh, so good. And
I love about that scene, like it also like sets up the pieces where you could see the more violent confrontation. Like you kind of see the little things that's like, oh, they're putting this in, so that's going to mean that this is going to get thrown in his face, or like he's going to smash him like with this or whatever, and it just doesn't. It just like he just eviscerates this guy with his words. They're all very precise and very, cutting in a very direct sort of way, and gets the point across without any use of violent or direct confrontation. And it's just a really wonderful scene to watch, and the performances from all three of those actors is just immensely good.
I'll finish out, give my grade and everything, just kind of referencing, I think, the next standout scene in the movie, or the pair of them involving the Darius character, which I don't even want to get into it because I think you just got to see it for yourself. I think that it's just such a sequence of events that completely upend what I think people think that they're coming in for with this movie. And I'm an easy mark for movies that care about male friendship. There's a lot of talk these days about, what is wrong with men. And, there's a lot of like guilt that men take on, it's like, yeah, we know, it's men that it's not great, like with what's going on, and men for the longest time were in absolute positions of power in so many places. And I think that one of the things that can kind of, for me, hopefully heal men who are caught in this place where they feel like, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to act? Like, pop culture, it sends all of these terrible messages. You get mixed messages about what it means to be a man. What does masculinity really mean? And, you hear things of like, oh, all men are terrible, or you hear like, oh, men are the best. And it's just like, where do I fit? And it's movies like this where I'm like, I got to give this to my bro, I'm like, hey, watch this movie. Like, this movie is like, it's here to sort of give you that like affirmation, that sort of validation of like, your emotions matter. There's nothing wrong with being a gruff, tough guy. There's nothing wrong with, being a certain way, and having passion, but there's also nothing wrong with breaking down in tears when it calls for it, and movies like this are so important to me because they can do so much good for people who, young men especially, like very impressionable teenagers. I want more people to see things like this and not the sort of things that they get from just trash TV shows that are just designed to sort of tap into this like really obnoxious side of like the pickup artist guy and like all this stuff that's just so useless. Like, it just doesn't do anything for you ultimately. And it's, I don't want to harp on anybody who gets any enjoyment out of a certain type of pop culture, but I wish this was the norm, I guess, is all I'm saying. And I think that Nicolas Cage, of course it's him, at the center of this movie doing that. So yeah, absolutely fantastic movie. I think it's basically, one of the absolute best of the year for me. So I give it the old A.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, I'm not too far from where you are. I'm going to give it a pretty firm A-. I mean, even just beyond what we've been saying already, I mean, there's just so much here that I wish I could spend more time to celebrate, including the editing, which I think is very exact, and also like even sort of like intentionally indelicate when like cuts some like scenes off quickly or let some scenes linger, have like this sort of like dreamy intangible quality, like I said, that sort of like presents this dreamlike quality to the film that I find very intriguing and beguiling. And I just really appreciate the boldness of this film that it's able to have such a simple, goofy premise, but present it in such a straight and thoughtful, sort of mournful fashion without being too ironic or too cutesy about it. Even though it is, I think, deliberately a pretty dryly funny film throughout. I wish we could talk about the comedy a little bit more, but I do think this is a funny film in many respects. I mean, not all the time, but I do think it does have a lot of moments that really tickle the old funny bone. But yeah, I mean, above all else, I think the movie speaks for itself, and I think it invites a lot of interesting conversations. I think it has a lot to say about many different things, whether it be Nicolas Cage's filmography or the sense of grief that one feels without really being able to put exact finger on it, and how we kind of take meaning in life from the small things that other people may not really understand or appreciate. It's just a well-rounded, good, very thoughtful, well-constructed movie, and it's only 90-something minutes as well, which is icing on the cake. So I'm going to, like I said, give it a firm A-. It's one of the boldest, most intriguing, and most rewarding films I've seen in a good bit, and another great film to Nicolas Cage's ever-growing filmography.
All right, well, that's an easy recommendation from the two of us. Clearly a must-watch, and hope you all who do check it out, or if you have already seen it, enjoy it as much as we did. But that is Pig. It's available to watch right now in limited release through Neon. As Will mentioned, it is just 92 minutes long, and Rotten Tomatoes wise, it's doing pretty well. 97% critic score. That is out of 106 reviews so far, but I'll probably be adding my own review once I'm done with that. Still chewing on some things here and there, but yeah, highly recommend. Thank you so much for listening to our show. Be sure to subscribe to Cinemaholics on your favorite podcast app of choice, or find us on YouTube. See you all next time.